Ladies and gentlemen, there's a question few dare to ask out loud. Why am I always alone? Not just lonely, not just overlooked, but marked, different. A chosen woman often walks a path so narrow even her shadow walks behind her. And today you must hear this truth. Your aloneness is not a curse, it is a calling. You see, God hides his most powerful instruments. He hides them in wildernesses, in silence, in seasons when no one texts back and no one shows up. The chosen woman does not walk with the crowd because the crowd cannot carry her mantle. You were never abandoned. You were set apart. Not everyone can walk beside greatness before it is revealed. The chosen woman does not live for validation. She walks under the instruction of the Spirit. And because of that, the world cannot comprehend her. Her silence is not weakness. It is protection. Her loneliness is not failure. It is formation. Relationships fall away because they would pull her back into who she used to be. Friends disappear because their season has ended. And still, she keeps walking. You walk alone, not because something is wrong with you, because something is right with you that hasn't been revealed yet. Every woman chosen by heaven is first stripped of every crutch. Why? Because she is to walk by faith and not by friendship. She learns the voice of God without needing the applause of men. She walks through fire, not to be burned, but to come out anointed. Her heart longs for companionship, but God says, not now. Let me be enough first. Do you feel it? That ache, that longing to belong. The chosen woman must surrender even her desire to be seen. Her reward is not popularity, but purpose. Her glory is not in followers, but in fruit. She may have no circle, but she carries a crown no one else can see. There is no shortcut to the throne. There is no partner in the refining fire. The applause when you're being molded in private. But oh, when the appointed time comes, one day the world will wonder how you got where you are. They won't see the nights you cried alone. They won't understand the cost you paid in silence. But you will, because you didn't quit. Because you trusted when it didn't make sense. Because you walked alone, but you never walked without him. You are not forgotten. You are not forsaken. You are in formation. You're not lonely. You're being led. Walk on, chosen woman. Walk on, even if no one walks with you. Because the one who called you walks within you. Separation is not rejection. It's preparation. There comes a time in the life of a chosen woman when everything begins to fall away. Not because she has done anything wrong, but because the divine hand of destiny has begun to move. Friends fade, relationships unravel, doors close, and she is left standing in the stillness of her own silence, wondering why she feels so rejected, so misplaced, so alone. But what she does not yet understand is this. What looks like rejection is often God's greatest act of preparation. A woman chosen for something greater is never ushered in through the crowded hallway of applause. She is led almost always through the long corridor of isolation. While others are building circles of friends and laying bricks of companionship, The chosen woman is being pulled into secret places, far from the noise and the comfort of companionship. And it hurts. Yes, it hurts deeply. She grieves the love she cannot seem to find. She questions her worth because she doesn't feel seen. She wonders if she's doing something wrong. But what feels like punishment is actually God's hand preparing her for something that no one else around her is ready for. You see, there is a sacred pattern with those who are chosen. They are separated not because they are broken, but because they are being broken open. Heaven does not entrust deep callings to those who live in constant dependency on others for their sense of self. So he strips her of every comfort, every relationship that has become a crutch, and every voice that has distracted her from his. He allows the loneliness to become loud so that she can finally hear him clearly. The silence isn't empty, it's full of instruction, it's full of revelation, and it's full of preparation. The chosen woman walks alone because she's being trained in ways that only solitude can teach. There are lessons that do not arrive in the company of others. There are revelations that cannot be shared in coffee shops and group chats. The chosen woman is taught in the wilderness, just as Moses was, just as David was, just as every great vessel of God has been. It is there. And the empty places, that character is formed, discernment is sharpened, and identity is solidified. She must know who she is without affirmation. She must find her strength without applause. She must hear the still, small voice without distraction. And so, the separation begins. But separation is never about making her less. It is about making her whole. In order to carry what she's destined to carry, she cannot be fragmented by people's opinions or the fear of being alone. She cannot be wrapped in insecurity or tossed by the winds of approval. She must be stable, rooted, anchored. And so God begins to remove the scaffolding. Every relationship that was seasonal begins to fall away. Every conversation that fed her ego instead of her soul dries up. She is pruned, not because she is dead, but because she is destined to bear more fruit than she can imagine. The pain she feels in her isolation is not the pain of rejection. It is the contraction of purpose being birthed within her. Her spiritual womb is heavy with divine vision, and not everyone can walk with her through the labor. Some would speak doubt. Others would plant fear. Some would slow her down. So heaven removes the extra weight and closes the door. The woman who's chosen often does not get to explain why she withdrew. She doesn't always get the closure she craves. People may call her distant or difficult. They may misunderstand her silence, her absence, her shift in priorities. But she's not trying to be better than anyone else. She's just trying to be faithful to the voice calling her deeper. She's not building walls. She's building a well. I see she walks alone, but not aimlessly, not hopelessly. She walks with divine purpose under her feet, even when she cannot see the destination. Every step forward is an act of obedience. Every lonely night is a night of sacred training. While others are posting their celebrations and their companionship, she is being refined in the fire of solitude. Her tears water the soil of her calling. Her questions lead her into greater trust. Her heart, though weary, is becoming wiser. Over time, she begins to realize this separation was necessary. Had she been surrounded by friends, she may have listened to their opinions instead of God's voice. Had she been in a relationship, she may have lost her focus to someone not aligned with her assignment. Had she been embraced by the crowd, she may have settled for comfort and never stepped into the greatness that demands courage. So God, in his mercy, allowed her to be misunderstood. He allowed her to be overlooked. He allowed her to walk through seasons where no hand reached out, because in doing so she found his hand, and that was enough. The chosen woman does not always understand her season while she is in it. She does not always see the preparation beneath the pain. But when the day comes that her calling is revealed, when her voice is needed, when her strength must stand in the gap for others, then she will understand. Every lonely moment was sacred. Every answered prayer was actually an answered one in disguise. She was never rejected. She was reserved. She was never forgotten. She was being formed. She was never alone. She was being led. And that is why a chosen woman walks alone, not as a punishment, but as a prophecy in motion, not because she is unloved, but because she is being prepared to love on a higher level. Not because she is less, but because she is more than what the world could understand at first glance. So if you are walking alone, lift your head. You are not in a season of loss. You are in a season of preparation. And preparation always comes before the promise. Chosen women are rarely understood. A chosen woman often walks through life carrying a weight that no one else sees. Her spirit senses things others dismiss. Her eyes see through the surface of people and situations, and her heart responds to a higher calling that even she sometimes struggles to articulate. She feels different, not just unique, but set apart in a way that can feel almost alienating. From a young age, there is a knowing inside her that she doesn't quite belong to the world as it is. Because of this, she is rarely understood. Those around her may love her, admire her even, but they don't fully grasp the depth of what she carries. She doesn't always speak much about it. Not because she's shy, but because she knows instinctively that not everyone can comprehend the spiritual weight she bears. There is a quiet wisdom in her silence. She has tried before to explain her dreams. So over time she learns that her sacred calling is not up for public discussion. It's not pride that keeps her quiet. It's protection. Some things are too holy to be placed in the hands of those who would treat them as common. And so she walks through seasons where even those closest to her misunderstand her intentions, misinterpret her silence, or misjudge her paths. Her journey is not like theirs. Her timing is different. Her discipline is uncommon. What she turns down, others chase. What she endures in private would break others in public. And when she tries to explain her choices, she often finds no words that can bridge the gap between her reality and their understanding. This lack of understanding can make her feel like a stranger among familiar faces. She may sit at the table with family and friends, but deep within she feels an unexplainable distance. It is not because she's arrogant or disconnected, but because she's being led by something invisible, something sacred, something eternal. She's not chasing worldly success or approval. She's not looking to fit in. She's been marked by a divine assignment, and that mark sets her apart from everything average, everything expected, and everything explainable. This is why relationships often fail to last in her life. People are drawn to her light, but few have the capacity to handle her depth. They want her energy, but not her silence. They want her wisdom, but not the process that birthed it. They are intrigued by her strength, but they don't stay long enough to see the tears that forged it. And when she withdraws to protect her spirit, they call her distant or cold. never realizing she's simply following a path they were never called to understand. She longs to be seen. Yes, she longs to be embraced and heard and known, but not at the cost of compromising her calling. So she endures the ache of being misunderstood because she knows that clarity will come in time, when the fruit of her obedience begins to blossom, when the power of her silence begins to speak louder than words ever could. Then the world will begin to understand. But for now, she walks alone, not in bitterness but in purpose. This misunderstanding doesn't stop at relationships. It happens in the workplace, in ministries, and communities. People try to place her in boxes that feel too small, too shallow, too ordinary. They give her roles she never asked for and make assumptions based on what they can see, not what God is doing behind the scenes. But she doesn't push back. She doesn't defend herself. She knows that the anointing on her life will speak for itself in due time. She has learned that being chosen often means being misunderstood, and she accepts it with quiet dignity. There is a unique kind of loneliness that comes with being set apart. It's not just the absence of people, it's the absence of those who truly see you. A chosen woman often sits with truths that have no audience. She carries burdens she cannot share. She receives visions she cannot explain. And yet through it all, she remains faithful. She may cry in the midnight hour. She may question the timing. She may feel forgotten. But she does not give up. She does not betray the calling for comfort. She chooses obedience over popularity, depth over distraction, and destiny over convenience. This is why she's misunderstood, because the world recognizes talent, but not always purpose. It celebrates noise, not stillness. It rewards conformity, not consecration. And the chosen woman is anything but conventional. Her life is not lived for the now. It is lived for the eternal. So people look at her decisions and shake their heads. They wonder why she doesn't date like others, why she doesn't entertain gossip, why she doesn't chase clout or status. They don't know that she's being led by a divine whisper, that every no she gives is a yes to something higher. She is rarely understood because she is not here to be understood. She is here to be obedient. The value of her life will not always be seen in the moment, but she is not living for the moment. She is living for the mission. And those who are called to walk beside her will recognize her not by what she says, but by the presence she carries. They will feel the weight of her surrender. They will know deep in their spirit that she is different, not better, but chosen. And chosen people carry a presence that cannot be explained, only discerned. So she continues, alone but never truly alone, misunderstood by man but fully known by God. She walks in silence but heaven watches every step. She smiles when it's hard, she worships when it hurts. She prays when no one sees, and she trusts that one day the same people who misunderstood her silence will be the ones transformed by her obedience. Her life is not meant to be explained. It is meant to be lived. And faithfulness, not understanding, is the true measure of a chosen woman. A chosen woman is called to a higher standard of living. There is an invisible standard written on the soul of a chosen woman. It is not something she brags about, nor is it something the world often praises, but it is real, and it governs the way she moves, speaks, chooses, and lives. This higher standard is not man-made. It is spiritual. It is not rooted in rules or rituals, but in divine responsibility. The chosen woman cannot live like everyone else. Her life is not her own. It has been set apart for something greater. She often finds herself torn between what she wants and what God requires. There are times she desires to fit in, to be normal, to live without the weight of conviction or the burden of discernment. But the spirit within her will not allow her to settle. She is constantly called up from compromise, up from distractions, up from relationships that feel good but serve no purpose. Even when no one is watching, she holds herself to a higher level of integrity. Even in private, she is careful with her thoughts, her words, and her actions. Not because she fears punishment, but because she honors her purpose. The world may call her too much, too intense, too pure, too spiritual, but she knows the price of being chosen is separation. It's the discipline of walking away from what is permissible for others but not beneficial for her. She is allowed to dream, but her dreams must be aligned with her calling. She is free to feel, but even her emotions are filtered through wisdom. She is human, yes, but her humanity is governed by divine expectation. She does not get to take the easy road. She does not get to cut corners. The higher the calling, the stricter the path. People may look at her and think she's being overly cautious or unnecessarily serious. But they do not see what she sees. They don't feel the pull on her heart. They don't hear the voice that wakes her in the night with a burden to pray, to fast, to prepare for something that hasn't yet come. While others sleep, she wrestles. While others scroll, she studies. While others waste time, she redeems it. This is the cost of her standard. This is what separates her, not by pride, but by purpose. She is held to a higher standard in every area. In her relationship, she cannot entertain confusion or inconsistency. She knows that who she surrounds herself with can either nourish or suffocate her calling. She walks away from drama, not because she's weak, but because her peace is too precious. She doesn't have the luxury of ignoring red flags. She sees deeper, she discerns faster, and she is required to act even when it's inconvenient or lonely. The relationships she maintains must be rooted in truth, growth, and alignment, not comfort. In her work, her creativity, and her service, a chosen woman gives her best. She does not cut corners. She does not wait for applause. She labors in silence, trusting that her obedience will be seen by the one who called her. She is not driven by external validation. Her reward is in the faithfulness of her process. She lives with excellence, not because anyone is watching, but because she knows her life is a testimony. Even in the smallest tasks, her standard is not perfection. It is surrender. She gives her all because she knows what's at stake. Even in her thoughts, she is called to rise higher. She must reject fear, even when it feels justified. She must choose faith, even when everything around her screams otherwise. She cannot dwell negativity, entertain jealousy, or harbor bitterness. Her mind must stay sharp, focused, and grounded in truth. The enemy will try to plant seeds of doubt, shame, and insecurity in her thoughts, because he knows that if she can rise above the mental warfare, she is unstoppable. And so she is constantly renewing her mind, cleansing her inner world, and standing guard at the gates of her heart. This high standard often isolates her. People don't always understand why she doesn't go to certain places, listen to certain things, or involve herself in certain trends. They see it as restrictive, but she sees it as protection. She understands that elevation requires separation, that influence requires integrity, that power requires purity. And so she chooses to live above the noise, not because she's better than others, but because she's committed to something higher. She would rather be lonely than lose her anointing. She would rather be misunderstood than misaligned with God's will. This standard doesn't make her superior. It makes her sensitive. Sensitive to the Spirit. Sensitive to timing. Sensitive to her surroundings. She can no longer ignore what others dismiss. She notices the shift in energy, the change in direction, the prompting to move or to wait. This level of awareness can be exhausting, but it is necessary. For what she carries is not casual, it is sacred, and it must be protected at all costs. There are moments when she wishes she could lay the mantle down, when the weight of her calling feels too heavy, when her discipline feels thankless, when the pressure to keep going seems unfair. But even in her weariness, she knows, deep in her soul, that she was not created for average, that there is more required of her because there is more within her. And so, she continues to walk the narrow road, knowing that the higher the standard, the greater the reward. She may not always see the fruit of her obedience immediately, but she knows that nothing done in surrender is ever wasted. Every sacrifice, every tear, every lonely night is accounted for, and one day, what she carried in silence will become the testimony that sets others free. One day the standard she lived by will be the light that leads others home. Until then, she remains faithful, consistent, set apart, and unwavering, because she knows she's not just living for herself. She's living for every life that will be transformed through her obedience to a higher standard. A chosen woman often walks alone because her path is not meant to be crowded. Her life is not built on popularity, but on purpose. When you are chosen, there is a divine stripping away that takes place, not to punish you, but to purify you. God removes distractions, attachments, and people who cannot go where He is taking you. Loneliness becomes the sacred classroom where character is built, where identity is refined, and where spiritual depth is cultivated. It is in this isolation that the chosen woman learns how to stand alone, speak with clarity, and move with unwavering conviction. People often misunderstand her solitude. They think it's because she's too picky, too quiet, or too distant. But in reality, her isolation is intentional. It's a protective measure from above. God is not trying to break her down. He is setting her apart. In a world that glorifies connection at any cost, the chosen woman is called to deeper discernment. She doesn't just connect with anyone. Her spirit is too sensitive to be around chaos. Her vision is too important to be around confusion. She values alignment over attachment. This is why friendships come and go in her life. People she thought would stay forever suddenly fade away. Relationships she invested in with her whole heart slowly unravel. It's not always dramatic. It's often quiet, natural, and inevitable. And though it hurts, she begins to realize that this pruning is divine. God is not taking something from her. He is making room for something more aligned. Not everyone has the capacity to walk with someone chosen. Not everyone can handle the weight of her calling. And so, God removes to protect. He subtracts to preserve. Many nights she sits in silence, wondering what she did wrong. She replays conversations. She questions her actions. She wonders if her standards were too high, if her boundaries were too firm. But deep down she knows this solitude has a purpose. In the absence of noise, she hears the whisper of divine instruction. In the quiet, she sees who she really is, beyond the expectations, beyond the applause, beyond the masks. This is where her real self is formed, where her relationship with God deepens, where her faith is no longer inherited but owned. It is in this season of walking alone that she develops the strength she never knew she had. She learns to pray with power. She learns to speak with wisdom. She becomes her own encourager, her own protector, her own provider of peace. This solitude is not weakness. It is divine training. God hides her to prepare her. He pulls her away to build her up. The strength she will need for the next level is not found in company. It is found in consecration. And so the chosen woman becomes comfortable with silence. She no longer needs the crowd. She no longer seeks validation. Her approval comes from a higher authority. She stops trying to force connections that don't flow naturally. She stops begging for attention that feels artificial. She understands now. Her value isn't in how many people surround her. It's in how aligned she is with her divine purpose. If walking alone means walking in obedience, she will choose obedience every time. This doesn't mean she becomes bitter or closed off. On the contrary, she becomes more loving, more open, but more intentional. Her heart remains pure, but her gates are guarded. She no longer entertains relationships that distract her from her assignment. She no longer allows emotional attachments to become spiritual entanglements. She understands that some people are good, but not good for her. That some relationships are seasonal, not eternal. That love without alignment is dangerous. And God is preparing a chosen woman. He doesn't just want her busy. He wants her rooted. He wants her to have clarity about who she is and what she's called to do. That kind of clarity doesn't come through constant companionship. It comes through stillness. And in stillness, she is sharpened. In solitude, she becomes strong. She learns how to hear God's voice above all others. She no longer panics when people leave. She no longer fears being alone, because she now understands what feels like isolation is actually incubation. When the time is right, the right people will appear. Not because she chased them, but because her spirit attracted them. People who honor her calling, not just her appearance. People who understand her silence, not just her speech. People who aren't intimidated by her strength, but inspired by it. But until then, she doesn't rush. She doesn't settle. She doesn't fill the silence with noise. She waits. She prays. She grows. The chosen woman learns that being alone is not the same as being abandoned. That her solitude is not a sign of failure, but a mark of favor. That God's greatest work in her life happens behind closed doors, in hidden places, far away from applause and attention. What others see as loneliness, she sees as preparation. What others see as rejection, she sees as redirection. She walks alone, not because she is unloved, but because she is loved too much to be placed in the wrong hands. She walks alone not because she is forgotten, but because she is being remembered in the courts of heaven. Heaven is investing in her. Heaven is shaping her. Heaven is protecting what she carries. And so she embraces the walk. She no longer resists the isolation. She knows that when the time is right, what she's been prepared for will manifest. And until then, she walks in grace, strength, and quiet confidence. She may walk alone, but she is never truly alone, for the one who chose her walks beside her. Every step, every season, every silence has meaning. Her path may be narrow, but it is sacred. And though she walks it alone, she walks it with purpose. A chosen woman is often required to walk alone because the anointing on your life demands a deeper level of obedience, surrender, and discipline that most people cannot comprehend or endure. The cost of being chosen is high, and not everyone is willing to pay it. When you are marked by God for a unique purpose, your life cannot mirror the lives of others. You can't do what everyone else is doing. You can't go where everyone else is going. Your life is set apart. Your spirit is sensitive. Your time, your energy, your focus must be protected. Because what you carry is sacred. Most people want the glory, but not the refining fire that precedes it. They want the platform, but not the process. They want the light, but not the loneliness. A chosen woman, however, understands that the anointing is not something you wear. It is something you survive. It is something you fight for in silence, something you carry through pain, prayer, and persistence. It is not granted in crowds, but in caves. It is not earned by applause, but by obedience. This is why her walk is solitary. Not because she is unworthy of companionship, but because the weight of her calling requires concentration. She can't afford to be distracted. Her spiritual ears must stay open. The chosen woman walks alone because she is being called to a higher level of transformation. She is not being punished. She is being purified. Every season of isolation is a divine invitation to come closer to the one who chose her. It is not a denial of love, but a refinement of it. She is being taught how to lean on God completely, not partially. She is being trained to trust in His timing, not her own emotion. She is learning to recognize the difference between divine connection and emotional attachment. In this sacred solitude, she becomes familiar with the voice of her Creator, not just the noise of the crowd. Her heart may ache at times, craving the warmth of companionship, the simplicity of ordinary relationships, but her spirit knows that not everyone is assigned to walk beside her. Some people are sent for a season, some for a reason, but very few are ordained for a lifetime. And because she is chosen, her spirit discerns who is sent by God and who is sent as a distraction. She doesn't entertain every invitation because she knows her assignment is too precious to be compromised. She doesn't invest herself in relationships that cost her peace. She would rather walk alone in alignment than with company in confusion. Their anointing also sets her apart emotionally. She feels things deeply, spiritually, and often before they happen. She carries burdens in her spirit that she cannot explain. She intercedes for people she doesn't even know. She has dreams, visions, and divine warnings that make her cautious about who she allows into her space. It's not pride, it's protection. The anointing she carries attracts both favor and warfare. The enemy is not attacking her because she's weak, but because she's dangerous to darkness. That's why God keeps her hidden. That's why her path is so narrow. He is protecting her from counterfeit opportunities and soul ties that would sabotage her destiny. Even in her loneliness, she finds peace. Not because the pain disappears, but because she begins to see the purpose behind it. She realizes that this season of walking alone is equipping her to carry what no one else can. She's not called to blend in, she's called to break through. She's not called to be popular, she's called to be powerful. And power does not come from people. It comes from proximity to God, from obedience in the secret place. So she stays there, even when it hurts, even when she's tempted to settle, even when the silence gets heavy. She's being trained in trust. In the quiet, her faith is refined. In the waiting, her character is developed. In the lack of companionship, her identity is clarified. She no longer sees herself through the lens of relationships, but through the eyes of purpose. She no longer measures her worth by attention received, but by obedience given. Her walk with God becomes her most intimate relationship. And in that relationship, she finds everything she needs: strength, clarity, comfort, direction. The chosen woman learns that elevation requires separation. To go higher, you must let go. And though letting go is painful, it is necessary. You cannot hold on to what is familiar and walk into what is divine. She releases the need to be understood by everyone because she now understands herself through God. She stops explaining her decisions to people who are not anointed to understand them. She no longer seeks approval from those who are not assigned to her destiny. She no longer chases what doesn't chase her back. She walks away from tables where her presence is merely tolerated and not divinely celebrated. Every step she takes alone is a step closer to divine clarity. Every season of solitude prepares her for divine strategy. Every delay becomes a divine setup. What looks like rejection is actually redirection. What feels like isolation is preparation. And even though it seems like nothing is happening, everything is being aligned behind the scenes. The anointing takes time. The preparation is thorough. And when she finally steps into what she was created for, it will be undeniable. People will wonder where she came from. They won't understand the cost she paid in the secret place. They won't see the nights she cried, the prayers she whispered, the temptations she overcame, the sacrifices she made. But the fruit will speak. The anointing will speak. Her presence will carry the weight of divine preparation. And she will no longer need to explain why she walked alone, because the evidence of her calling will be undeniable. She was hidden, but not forgotten. She was stripped, but not broken. She was lonely, but not lost. She was chosen, not because she was perfect, but because she was willing. Willing to walk away, willing to wait, willing to wait, willing to trust, willing to walk alone if it meant walking in purpose. Understand this, you walks with peace, with power, with presence. She walks knowing she was never really alone. God was with her all along, guiding, shaping, molding, and anointing her for such a time as this. So if you find yourself walking alone, not because you chose it, but because everything in your spirit tells you that you were chosen, understand this. You are not lost. You are led. You are not abandoned. You are being set apart. You are not unloved. You are deeply known by the one who called you before the foundation of the world. Yes, the path is narrow. Yes, the silence can be deafening. And yes, sometimes your heart will ache for someone to walk beside you, to understand you, to simply stay. But the truth is, God has not called you to blend in. He has called you to stand out. He has trusted you with this walk because he knew you could carry it. You are not alone because you are unworthy of love. You are alone because the love God has for you is preparing you for something greater than temporary companionship. It is preparing you for divine alignment, for holy purpose, for a legacy that cannot be built on shallow ground. When others look at your life and don't understand your silence, your distance, your solitude, remember, they were not called to understand. Only the chosen understand what it costs to be chosen. Only the anointed know what it feels like to be set apart. You are becoming a woman that heaven can trust. And that kind of growth doesn't happen in crowds. It happens in the quiet. It happens in the fire. It happens in the lonely places, where only you and God sit face to face. So don't despise the loneliness. Don't curse the season of being misunderstood. Don't rush into connection just to fill the silence. This sacred isolation is the womb of your purpose. Let it form you, let it shape you, let it refine you, until your character can carry the weight of the calling on your life. You are not walking alone, you are walking ahead. Pioneers always do, trailblazers always must. Chosen women don't walk ordinary paths. They walk the roads heaven carved specifically for them, and those roads may not be crowded, but they are covered by grace, by purpose, by divine favor. When the time is right, God will bring the right people, the right relationships, and the right connections, not to complete you, but to complement what He has already completed in you. Until then, keep walking, keep trusting, keep becoming. Because even though your feet walk alone, your spirit is surrounded by glory. You are chosen. That's why you walk differently. That's why you walk alone. And that's why you will arrive exactly where God designed you to be.